The first thing is obviously food diet, fresh, raw or lightly cooked species appropriate diet. Yeah, if you're going to throw your money at anything, do it with the diet. If you really don't have a lot of spare money for supplements and you know you don't need something, bone broth for the gut and a probiotic, especially if your animal has very obvious gut issues. It's really going to benefit from higher doses and more diverse strains of probiotics. Older animals, they definitely need more. I think people just think of it more as like gut issues, but gut issues really are the driving force of all disease. If anybody did anything for their pets, I'd say an omega-3 and probiotics are really the two. After diet, those two supplements tend to make the most difference because they're really making an impact on immunity and inflammation, which are the best things you can really get under control in the body if you want longevity of your pet.
Hi, and welcome back to the Natural Dog Mum podcast. Today we are chatting with Erin Follington. She is both a human and a small animal naturopath, and she has a brand of natural supplements, funnily enough, called Natural Pet Supplements. Hi, thanks for coming.
Hi, how are you?
Really good, really, really good. Thank you so much. Been trying to get you on for so long, but the technical gods just weren't having it.
I know in Perth it's called wait a while, so we have to wait a while for the NBN, but hopefully this works.
So tell our audience a little bit about how you got started and what made you, I guess, make the transition from treating humans to treating animals.
Well, I was a human naturopath, and at the end of the study, I worked for someone who maybe didn't have the best ethics, which I'd seen a lot in human naturopathy. Actually, it was more like a money making machine, just trying to make people take a load of supplements. And I just couldn't do it. I just was like, yeah, it just was like a money making exercise, and no one was actually really getting better. And I was like, yeah, this is not what I meant to do. I know it's close to what I want to do because I love herbal medicine and nutrition. And I kept having people coming in and asking about their dogs. And I'm obviously obsessed with dogs, have been my whole life, dogs and cats. These people are like, oh, my dog's, got this bad gut and can they take herbs? I was like, oh, I don't know, actually. And people just kept coming in and wanting things for their pets. And I ended up, leaving that job. And I was in between jobs. I was like, I do not want to do that. Humans are hard too because people don't necessarily want to heal. They don't want to spend money on themselves and they don't want to change their diet. That's for bloody sure. So I knew that when there was an animal and people love their animals and they're willing to change their diet, they're willing to spend their money on them, and animals have a lot less barriers to healing. So anyway, in my time of brief unemployment, I was like, I knew I was going to do something different. And I had a puppy at the time, Taco, my beautiful Labrador, who passed at 12, but really, really bad itchy skin. And he was basically having the typical food allergies that you see in so many dogs. And of course, I wasn't an animal naturopath at the time. So I was feeding him those rubbish biscuits and started doing research on that because I had all the time because I didn't have a job. And I was like, oh no, this food's actually rubbish. Then I looked around for herbal alternatives because I knew how incredible a modality it was. And there's nothing out there for animals in Australia that was actually decent or wasn't in an alcohol base. So that's when I was like, it just sort of clicked. I was like, oh my gosh. So then I studied another 3 years in small animal naturopathy. And then at the end of that, there still wasn't anything. I mean, obviously I cured all of his skin allergies pretty quick with herbs and a change of diet, but there was still nothing out there when I finished that was herbal, was actually effective, did what it said on the actual bottle. And so I was like, oh, I have to make herbals for pets that actually taste good. Because, I mean, we know what plants taste like. They don't taste great to us half the time. They're not going to taste great to a freaking cat. So you've got to, because I used to be a professional cook as well, so I know how to mix flavors. I know how to, it's sort of all these jobs I had before came together. Herbalist, and sort of make it taste good for animals. And I think if you can get those two together with, of course, 7 years of research in herbal medicine, I can do something to help animals that I have. I've done about 6,500 orders now. And I really just wanted to focus on products that helped animals, well, helped conditions that vets really struggled with, which if you look at the top 10 reasons that people go to vets, it's always the skin, constant skin problems, ear infections, Cushing's disease, coughs, all different types of things. So I was like, if I can, focus on those things that where the gap is with healing, I think I might be able to do some good, and I guess I have.
Absolutely. Yeah. I hear that you've got a new probiotic, a new gut health product. Is that available now, or that's coming soon? Or?
Yeah, that was one I just released not long ago. So I do liquid herbal medicines, human grade, in a glycerin base, not alcohol. Tastes much better, and it's obviously far less dangerous. And it's bacon flavour, of course. And I had powders before, and I love my probiotic powders, my gut powders, and I really focused on 2 different formulas for the gut in powders. But I just found that some dogs, doesn't matter how delicious you make the powder or easily disguisable, some just do better with liquids. So I made a digestion support, which is a liquid herbal, and mainly just I wanted to make it suitable for dogs with not just irritable bowel or just general indigestion, but dogs also with irritable bowel disease. So you have to be a bit careful with that, because, there's some dogs that have really strong reactions to things that they take. So I wanted something that was gentle yet quite powerful. So just did a liquid for that. And it's great it kind of encompasses everything. So it's, obviously going to help soothe the gut if there's inflammation. It's going to help digest the food. It's going to help with dogs with a low appetite, ones that, are constantly farting. So really just to help the process of digestion.
So can you give us some examples of maybe a couple of the active ingredients and how they work?
Yeah, sure. So there's a lot that you'll recognise in human formulas as well. So we've got chamomile, which is really relaxing to the gut, very soothing. Chamomile tea, everybody knows it. Great for dogs and cats. And especially, it's not just relaxing on the gut, it's really relaxing on the nervous system as well. So, like, for example, border collies. I call it border collie gut because they're in their head so much and they're so active that the nervous system hasn't really got a chance to digest anything because it's so in its focused on everything else. And so it doesn't get a lot of rest and digest. So they tend to have a lot of diarrhea, I find, or a lot of gut issues because, there's sort of 2 modes. It's like, fight or flight or rest and digest. And really active dogs tend to not really get into the rest and digest too well. So something like chamomile is also good for their nervous system as well as the gut for those really border collies or dogs like border collies that are really active. Marshmallow is in there as well, which people think marshmallows is the one you eat, but well, that's what they were originally made from, is marshmallow root. So it's like a demulcent. It's really soft and it lines the gut because if you've got, they've got really strong pH or there's just a lot of irritation in the gut, marshmallow really soothes that. Calendula, that's so everyone knows calendula flowers, obviously that lovely orange flower, but it's also a very strong antibacterial, antimicrobial to kill off bad stuff in the gut, and also really soothes the lining as well. Astragalus. So that I added for more the dogs with irritable bowel disease because it's an immune herb. And so any immune sort of mediated allergies or autoimmune conditions, it's an immune modulator. So it's a fancy word for either it'll push the immune system up if it needs building up, or if it's overreactive, it'll bring it back down. So it's one of those rare herbs that sort of goes into the body and knows what to do. And fennel seed. So that's great for gas, cramping, and increasing appetite. And peppermint and ginger, which everybody knows, obviously. Peppermint's very cooling, really soothing. And ginger to get rid of nausea and also I only put a tiny bit of those 2 in because they're very strong taste. But, they work really well in really small amounts to just calm everything down and get it through the gut. So that's all thrown into a bottle with some bacon flavour, and it's only 1 drop per kilo. So it's you don't need a lot of that for it to be effective.
Lovely. Now, the question I hear all the time, and I'm sure you do as well, is probiotics. Mm-hmm. Why do we need them, or why do our dogs need them? And where do I start? How do I choose the right one for my dog? Can you talk a little bit about that?
Yes, big subject, but If people are really, really confused, I'd say something's better than nothing. And with the diets they have today, which are generally highly processed, they're not getting probiotics in their normal diet. So that's really quite devastating to their gut and immune system. Probiotics are obviously a huge part of the immune system, and most of the immune system is in the gut. So you'll see a lot of, well, it's such a big subject, but basically, you could think of obvious signs of like gut problems: indigestion, runny poos, really smelly poos, reflux, any sort of things that dogs can get, cats can get. They're going to benefit from probiotics because there's a whole microbiome in there. And it benefits from good bacteria. Something is better than nothing. Even just the ones you can buy in the supermarket, it's always better than nothing. Dogs, even in really good diets I've seen, like really good fresh food diets, they often won't even add in probiotics or even foods high in probiotics. They'll want you to supplement with more, obviously, to jack up profit or whatever. And I think all dogs, all cats should be on it because these processed diets are just so, they're so deficient in probiotics. And it's basically, I think, a bit like, I'll explain it because it's a huge subject, how to explain it to my son when I make him take probiotics. He's 7. I just say it's like your soldiers. It's like a little army. And that army, your immune system obviously needs, it does its job, but it needs extra soldiers because everything that we're facing in this day and age, we need extra soldiers. So that's what probiotics are. And they're in the gut, obviously. You take them. There's a big microbiome in there and it needs feeding and it needs replenishing. And especially if your animal has very obvious gut issues, it's really going to benefit from higher doses and more diverse strains of probiotics. Older animals, they definitely need more. Any sort of autoimmune disease, if they're taking steroids, Cushing's disease, there's anything where there's a lot of inflammation already in the body, they're really going to benefit from probiotics. I think people just think of it more as like gut issues, but gut issues really are the driving force of all disease. I suppose getting into leaky gut syndrome and then that being the driver of inflammation and almost all diseases being fueled by inflammation. I could not recommend anything more really than probiotics. If anybody did anything for their pets, I'd say an omega-3 and probiotics are really the two. And I say that as someone who owns a herbal pet brand, but after diet, those two supplements tend to make the most difference because they're really making an impact on immunity and inflammation, which are the best things you can really get under control in the body if you want longevity of your pet.
Absolutely. Now, you mentioned earlier feeding foods that support the gut and that naturally have probiotic benefits. Can you give us a few examples? I feed, for example, regularly things like Greek yogurt, things like kefir, those sorts of things just to support the gut.
Yeah, that's good. Especially if it's also with a diet that's really natural, fresh, and species appropriate. If you've got, say, I don't know, black and gold dog biscuits and you're putting a dollop of Greek yogurt on there, it's probably not gonna. It's like you've got a blazing inferno of inflammation there in that dog bowl, and you're just putting a little tiny bucket of water on it. So that's why I always tell people, like, the diet is the most important thing, and then after, supplements. Like, if you're going to throw money at anything, do it on the diet. But yes, Greek yogurt's great. And also, kefir as well. A lot of people might not even bother with that. A lot of people wouldn't even know what kefir is, but they do tend to like it. It's a nice food for them as well. They love yogurt, cats even too. Therapeutic dosage, probably not really, especially for dogs with more serious gut issues. But fed over a long period of time, it definitely does benefit, but it's probably not really a therapeutic dosage.
No, of course
of probiotics in there.
Yeah, obviously, if you've got ongoing problems, you're going to need the support of probiotics of some sort of digestive aid to really get things functioning the way they should. I more or less use those things, I guess, for maintenance and just helping to maintain the gut biome. Obviously, you're going to need something more if you're having problems.
Yes.
The other sort of thing that I love to use is green banana, whether
Oh, yeah.
fresh or even you can get the air dried or freeze dried puree. And they love it. I make them banana smoothies with goat's milk or with kefir and make it into a bit of a treat, but it's just so good for their tummy.
That is really good. Yeah, you're a great dog mum. I think, yeah, a lot of people wouldn't go to that effort, but yeah, you've probably got dogs with great gut health. But I suppose just if the average person was just wondering what probiotics, I mean, I see a lot of supplements. I guess that's why I created mine a bit different. And it's just this tiny little jar of just say 5 or 6 strains of probiotics, and it's advertised as cure your dog's skin allergies, yeast infections. And I'm like, I don't know that that little jar is that magical. It's nice thinking, and it does help some dogs that might have like some skin issues, some mild skin issues. But sometimes I think you need a bit more than probiotics. That's like, say, with I've got my gut restore powder and my probiotic gut support, and they're very different. Like, say, my gut restore powder, it has obviously the 7 strains of animal specific probiotics, but I designed this formula to actually be for dogs specific with skin allergies or skin atopy and yeast infection, which is usually caused by leaky gut syndrome. And so I really wanted to address the gut lining with this, whereas a lot of just probiotics, but you know, you can put something into the gut, but if the wall isn't absorbing, utilizing, or processing any of those supplements or foods well, it's kind of like throwing something away. So the gut restorer have the glutamine in there, which is specific for healing gut cells, and so that really calms down inflammation in the gut. And there's marshmallow, and then I've put liver herbs to help try and excrete toxins. And then I've got different other yeast killing herbs, immune modulating herbs like reishi mushroom, you know, along with prebiotics like inulin, which are food for the probiotics. So it's really putting everything in one, and then much to the dogs and cats, you know, disdain, I put a vegan bacon powder in there to try and cover all those stinky herbs that work fantastic. And this formula, I've just had such incredible results with it. I'm most proud of this formula, probably more than anything. Yeah, I recently had a lady, her dog was cured within 3 weeks of like about, I think 3 years, this dog had had chronic ear issues. And within 3 weeks of taking the gut restore powder and yeast support, her dog was cured. And just hearing things like that, it's like, oh, that's why I do it. Someone who's been taking their dog to the vet every week for 3 bloody years. And this woman was, you know, she's quite a well-known person in Australia. She, you know, she may have had the money to take her dog to the vet every week or other week, but people are putting their dogs down because of they can't afford the chronic ear infections, the skin allergy issues. And yeah, you weren't seeing this 30 or 40 years ago. People are putting their dogs down because of skin conditions. It's so preventable, and it is like a marathon. It's not a sprint. And once they've got that chronic sort of bleeding, itchy skin, it can be a bit of work to reverse that, but it is possible with diet change, restoring that the gut lining, and putting the right herbs and probiotics in there. So it is possible to reverse things if you really heal the gut. So that's what the gut restore powder is for. And then I've got a probiotic gut support. So they're quite different. Like the gut restore, because it's got all those like yeast killing herbs and the liver herbs and the glutamine for the gut lining. That's sort of one just for when they're in that acute stage of, you know, yeast infection. They've got all the food allergies, skin allergies, and the probiotic gut support is just a more everyday immune boosting probiotic. So it's got, you know, the 7 strains of probiotics, the prebiotic inulin in it, which is the food for the good bacteria. And then you've got bone broth powder, which, you know, is an amazing superfood for dogs and cats. And because it's very nourishing, obviously full of a lot of different vitamins and minerals, it also helps to rebuild that gut wall as well. And then I've also got in colostrum, bovine colostrum from some cows in Victoria, ethically sourced, because that is just one of the best things to heal any sort of gut issues. And I put in there something a bit different. Instead of people put digestive enzymes in there, I feel they can be a bit harsh sometimes, synthetic digestive enzymes. So I actually put in papaya juice powder, which is a natural source, because then you get all the benefits. It's like a slow freeze-dried papaya juice powder, but when you use the whole food, I think you get the benefits. It's, very high in papain, which is an enzyme that helps to break down and digest food. But then you get, all those vitamins and minerals that's actually in the papaya as well. So, I mean, that's, $110 a kilo for this stuff. So I'm like, oh, it's killer. And for the bottom line, the things I use are like the top of the line, like my, bone broth powder is $90 a kilo, and the beef stock is like, $90 a kilo. It's definitely the human stuff, but I don't want to put anything in my formulas that is not the absolute top-notch stuff, because I think they get so much crap in their food by these companies who are driven by the bottom line. I'm like, I don't need to be rich, but I need to know that I'm really putting something out there that's, I don't know, just really beneficial and tastes good to them. Because they can smell. I mean, a dog and a cat's nose, I mean, they're going to know straight away if you put something in front of them that's really good for them, because they can smell all those amino acids and the good stuff. Yeah, I don't have too many complaints. Even with the vegan bacon one, you can still get it in them. Yeah.
I was just speaking on the phone with someone who has a 12-month-old pup. First dog she's had in her life, who is very keen but still very much on a pretty steep learning curve when it comes to doing all the right things for diet, for immune health, all of those things. What would you suggest to someone who says is getting a puppy? What do they need to be doing to set them up for good gut health for their life?
Okay. Well, I mean, look, I can think back to, you can look at like the parents of the puppy, and it'd be nice to start there. But look, we don't all have that luxury of having dogs that had parents that were well fed and were well nourished and all that kind of stuff. So if it's just your average dog, the first thing I would do is food diet, fresh, raw, or lightly cooked species appropriate diet. There's so many great options out there for dogs. There's not a whole heap for cats, but there is great ones out for dogs now. I like, if you're going bar for biologically appropriate raw feeding, bar style food, which I really like. It's easy now. Like if you're lazy and you can't be bothered, like I hate cooking for myself, and I certainly am not going to do it for a dog. We're not all great cooks. Big Dog, that's just one of the companies that have the freeze-dried patties. Swap it out every 6 weeks. It's really good to swap out the proteins, sort of rotate every 6 weeks. If your dog is starting to show signs of skin allergies, atopy, itching, all that kind of stuff, you're probably going to need to go get a test and figure out, because there might already be an issue there with the protein. And the quicker you sort that out, the better, because you don't want to keep feeding something that's just going to irritate more and more. But if your dog does have that sort of issue, you have to give something to heal the gut. It's probably leaky gut syndrome, which is just rife in dogs fed diets that are processed, and it's the driver to all disease. So it sounds very scary saying that, but you just really need to get them on a good strain of probiotics. I mean, something like don't want to spread my own products too much, but the gut restore powder, it'll heal the gut wall, it'll calm down the immune system and give you time to put something fresh in there that'll stop the inflammation cycle. And there's different places out there where you can get allergy or at least IgG response testing to make sure that there isn't anything that's very obvious that could be causing an immune reaction. And if there is, it's much better the easier you start. I mean, once you're like 8 years in with a dog that's got chronic skin issues and gut issues, it can be really hard to reverse some of that. So the earlier people start, the better. Not just probiotics. You're probably if they're starting to itch, you need something more than probiotics, and you just really need to get the inflammation down in their body by feeding them something that is actually good for them and fresh, which usually isn't something you find in a supermarket.
So if you manage to get to them before they start itching and scratching and getting ear infections, nice balanced whole fresh food diet, probiotic, and some bone broth as well. I mean, it's so easy to give to them and they love it. I mean, the way that I support my baby's health, I mean, they'll eat it any which way. They love everything. They're retrievers. But what I do, especially in warmer weather, I have all different size and shape of ice cube trays. In one tray, I will have bone broth, which I make Freezy Pops out of, which they have every day,
Yep.
so I know that they've had that. I will have another tray which has kefir and some blueberries or some Greek yogurt and some fruit or something along those lines. And rather than cooked treats or anything that has preservatives and things in there that they really don't need, besides their fresh meaty bones and dehydrated proteins, that's what they get as treats, and they love it just as much. But they're getting their nutrients, and they're zero gut problems. And my boy has got anxiety, and gut problems very often go along with that. And it's very, very rare that I see any problems just doing that, and it's so easy.
It is. And I'm all about giving them things they really like. I mean, there's nothing worse than spending a lot of money on a supplement and they hate it. And then you get pissed off every meal because you're like, oh Christ, how am I gonna get this into them? Then you spoil the food by putting a supplement in the food. And then it's just like, yeah, so my probiotic gut support has the bone broth in there. And like that one you just, it's to make into a gravy, because I find if you make anything into a gravy with dogs, they tend to love that too. But yeah, the bone broth is such an easy way to really help gut health. And they're meant to have bones. So, yeah, they really are. But I guess that's a whole other subject. Yeah, no, bone broth, great.
So do you have any final last words for pet parents? Anything that stands out in your mind that you really want them to know?
Yeah, I guess I've been bang on about it the whole time. But yeah, if you're going to throw your money at anything, do it with the diet. If you really don't have a lot of spare money for supplements and you know you don't need something, bone broth for the gut and just a probiotic, even if you have to give it at a half dose to save money, that's still better than nothing. Yeah, and like even a big dollop of Greek yogurt, still good for them. But yeah, there's some great supplements out there. But yeah, just make sure if you see probiotics for dogs, you really want the prebiotics with the probiotics. If there's additional things in there like colostrum, glutamine, possibly some other herbs that might be good as well for the gut. But really, probiotics are very important. Like I said, if I were to recommend any two supplements that weren't herbal, I would always say, and I say it for humans and animals, because inflammation and immunity are so closely related and are the driver to most chronic disease. So omega-3s and probiotics are really the two things that are great if you can supplement.
Excellent. Thank you so much. I could chat all day with you about this stuff, so we're definitely gonna have to have you back and pick your brain some more, I think.
Well, thank you for my first podcast.